Okay, so once again, time for the weekend preview here at at Timeform Towers. That was a good start, wasn't it? And you might notice that we've got some brand new kit this week. We're very exciting to have microphones, and it's a decent set of racing as well. David Johnson's the man to take us through it, and it's probably headlined by some group action at Sandown.
Yeah, very much so. Obviously, a couple of Group 3s, the Solario Stakes and Atalanta Stakes. Mm-hmm. I think the Solario in particular looks a real competitive race. You know, you think back last year, it threw up the Derby winner, Massar. A few years before that, you go back, Kingman won it, and even you're probably too young to remember Ravens Pass, but Group 1 winner as well, like that. So it is the kind of group race that can throw up proper horses for the following season, and fingers crossed we might have at least one in there that could be among that kind of bracket.
Yeah, we'll start with the Atalanta Stakes, and it's a race I was looking at this morning actually, and looking at the Tuesday preview that we wrote, and there's a few come out of that race, and it means now that we've got a very short price favourite in the form of Voracious, but she looks to be a worthy favourite for all that.
I'm not sure I agree with you, to be honest. She might just about be a worthy favourite, but I mean, you've got the prices there. Can you just read them out, what we got?
Yeah, we've got 8 to 11 Voracious, 4 to 1 Laugh Aloud, 7 to 1 Awesome Tank, 10's Bar.
Yeah, so Voracious, she's odds on, got a Timeform adjusted figure of 125, and then we've got Laugh Aloud, who is, did you say 9 to 2 she was?
Yeah. Ish, yeah.
And she's got an adjusted figure of 134. So, just in terms of what they've achieved on the Timeform ratings, to me it's a surprise that they're that far apart. Now, we can talk about why they're that far apart. We know that the Gosden filly, or mare, Laugh Aloud, has been off for a long while. We haven't seen her since, never mind this year's Derby meeting, it was the Derby meeting in 2017. She should have gone to Royal Ascot. She had a setback there and hasn't been seen since. So you've got the fact that she's been off a while as a concern, but equally you've got the fact that she's trained by John Gosden. She holds entries in group races later in the season, the likes of the Matron, the Sun Chariot. So the fact that she was a Group 3 winner last year, she'd done enough basically to go to stud. They've brought her back as though there's some unfinished business. She's got those Group 1 entries. She looked like she was going to be a Group 1 horse last year, so I'm hoping that she's going to be. And given the prices, I'm prepared to bet that she will be.
How do you feel about these long absences? Because I've got it here, 455 days off the track. Do you prefer some stables to others, or do you take it on a runner-by-runner basis?
I think the only way you can do it is treat it on a case-by-case basis. The fact that it's from a yard like John Gosden's, who, is the best British stable that has been around for the last 5 or 6 years. The fact that, like I mentioned, she could have gone off to stud. She'd got that black type from winning the Group 3, but they felt it was worth persevering with her. That sort of leads me to think that, they obviously feel she is going to do more than what she did last year. And if she is going to go on and running those Group 1 races later in the year, she's going to have to be pretty close to her best here. And if she is, I think, she's entitled to put it right up to the favourite.
Yeah, and it's interesting you think that the prices should be perhaps a bit different, because Voracious has run really well the last twice in Group 1 company, and this is a big step back in trip, and she is lightly raced as well.
She is, yeah, there's lots of positives with her. She's obviously well regarded. The fact that Sir Michael Stout ran her in the Coronation Stakes on just a third run, kept her at Group 1 company last time in the Nassau at Goodwood. I think the drop back in trip's going to be in her favour as well. She pulled pretty hard off a steady pace at Goodwood. She's by Frankel, out of Infallible. Infallible, I think, it was actually trained by John Gosden. She was a Nell Gwynn winner. She wasn't quite as good at a mile as she was at shorter. So I think you look at the pedigree, the way that she goes through her races, a mile will probably suit her better than a mile and a quarter. But it's just the fact that she's as short as what she is. Her form isn't quite as good as what she's priced at the minute. And like I say, if, and it's a relatively big if, that Laugh Aloud can reproduce what she did as a 4-year-old, then I think she's a good bet around 4 to 192.
What do you think about the other runners in the field? There's three that I've got that I think are interesting. I'll start with Winter Lightning because she's similar to Laugh Aloud in that she's owned by Godolphin and also has been off the track quite a while, not seen since March in Sandown.
Yeah, hard to assess for me, this filly. We haven't seen her since she was running on the dirt back in Sandown. She bombed out in the UAE Oaks. She's a 5-1 on shot there. Finished only 8 lengths third. Like I say, not seen since. She's a half sister to Thunder Snow, obviously a Dubai World Cup winner, so we know she's fine on that surface. Itimal is another of her sisters. She was best on to Peter as well, so we have to go back to Winter Lightning's debut for her last run on turf, and obviously that was just a maiden. The form on turf just isn't there, so the absence, the lack of turf form, she's just too much of an unknown for me to want to back her.
We've got some course and distance form here with Awesome Tank, won a listed race last time out.
Yeah, exactly. A listed race winner over course and distance, so the step up to a Group 3 is the obvious step for her. Mm-hmm. The concern is that she looks like she's run into a couple of horses here who are taking a step down in grade, Laugh Aloud and Veracity. They're basically voracious. They're better than a typical Group 3, so she's a little bit unlucky in that she's come up against them here, because I think even if she runs a race, that's not going to be enough in this company.
What about Clonculis? Back-to-back listed wins, another one worthy of a chance here?
Just sort of similar to Awesome Tank, really. Mm-hmm. She's won the 2 listed races. It makes sense to try her in this kind of company, but there's nothing that what she's done to date that suggests she's got the potential and ability of the likes of Laugh Aloud and Voracious. So it's essentially a 2-horse race for me. The fact that Laugh Aloud is so much bigger price than Veracity, Voracious, I will get a name right eventually. It's just a clear case of the prices look wrong to me, so I'll side with the one that's much bigger than what I think it should be.
Okay, so 9-2 at the moment, Laugh Aloud will go for her. And we'll move now into the Solario Stakes, a race which you mentioned, of course, produced Massar last year. And there's a lot of good vibes about the current favourite as well, Too Darn Hot, who really impressed on debut.
He did, but it's all factored into the price, isn't it? And, he's around even money, and he just looks, for want of a better phrase, too darn short. He's the problem. He's bottom rated. He's got the large P, obviously. These horses are difficult to rate in terms of the fact that he's just coming straight out of a maiden, where he's running against horses that have had a go to show how good they are in group company. So we would expect that his form would be lagging behind them at this stage. We can look at his pedigree. He's a brother to Somi Dar and Lati Dar. Mm-hmm. We look at what they achieved after 2 runs. Lati Dar, she was rated 116p after her second run. Somi Dar was rated 112p after her second run. So on pedigree, it's very easy to see Too Darn Hot stepping up massively on what he did that first time. It's interesting that he's running here. He's stepping back in trip, which doesn't necessarily look an obvious move on pedigree or the way he's shaped. He looked better the further he went last time, didn't he? But equally, it's John Gosden again. Excellent trainer. He had horses like Beatboxer, King of Comedy, that Sandown maiden or novice winners that would have looked suitable for this race as well. So the fact that he's chosen Too Darn Hot suggests he's obviously ahead of those 2 in the pecking order. It's just a case of, do you go with the potential or those that have got the form in the book and at the prices? I think you don't have to sort of look too long to start deciding. 11-10, I'd rather be against it than with it.
Yeah, as you mentioned, there's some really good form in behind. I'll start with Arthur Kitt, who's won a Chesham.
Yeah, he has his 2 from 2, not seen since then, which I think was a deliberate ploy. They gave him a mid-season break. Showed a really good attitude in the Chesham, stayed on stoutly, having got outpaced mid-race, and that's sort of the concern for me, is whether he's going to be able to hold his position in the middle part of the race. We know he's going to be finishing his race well, but there's some horses in here that have got speedier pedigrees. I think, obviously Arthur Kitt by Camelot. And, I mean, he's out of Seal and Kitty, who was a Queen Mary winner, so there is speed there, but what we've seen so far suggests he takes much more after his sire than his dam, whereas Confiding by Ifrage, Dunkerron by an Australian sprinting sire, Kurashio, again, they look to have that little bit more early speed, I think, and they might just hold their position a little bit better than Arthur Kit once it really hots up.
Okay, how about Watan? He's been really solid so far. Of course, won at Goodwood and then was an excellent second at York last time as well.
Well, yeah, you look at the prices. Have you got what price he is?
It's about 7-1 at the moment.
Yeah, which he was 5-2 to win the Acomb, which is obviously another 7 furlong Group 3 last week. Ran perfectly well, advanced his form, and now all of a sudden he's become a little bit forgotten. This looks a little bit of an afterthought, doesn't it? Obviously coming here, having run at York, but that Acomb run is probably the best form in the book. There's not a lot in it on the Timeform ratings. He's on 118p. We've got Dunkerron on 117, Arthur Kit 116p, and Confiding 115p. There's not much between all of those that have been running in group company, and it's that kind of strength in depth to this race that makes me think that they're all runners against Too Darn Hot, who is so short.
What would you be concerned about how quickly he's been turned out, considering it's so early in his career? Or
yeah, exactly. It does look a bit of an afterthought, and if he doesn't run to his rating, the first thing that you're going to look to as an excuse, you're going to say he's probably found it coming too soon. We don't know how he's going to come out of it. The fact that he's running here suggests connections. I think he's showing no outward signs of that race having left a mark. If you were looking for another negative, you could argue the ground is a bit of an unknown. Toronado famously got bogged down in his guineas when the ground changed, didn't he, and was better on a quicker surface. And obviously it's all American on the dam side of the pedigree, so that might be a bit of an unknown if it stays on the softer side of good. But like I say, you've got a real strong race. It looks as though one of the better Solarios that there has been, and you don't even need to have a bet in it to really enjoy this race, but if you really want one, I suggest trying to get the favourite beat.
Yeah, have we mentioned Confiding? He was a solid third, wasn't he, at Goodwood last time?
Yeah, he might have got a little mention in passing along with Dunkerron. It's, like you say, the vintage form at Goodwood. They went hard that day, which set it up for the winner Dark Vision. Confiding was another of those that was out the back that day. So, I know he's only had the 2 runs compared to Dunkerron's 5, but I'd still be a little bit surprised if he did turn the form round. I really like the move that Dunkerron made 2 furlongs out to 1 furlongs out. Really sort of caught a few by surprise and caught them flat-footed by comparison. And I think a similar move in this race, it wouldn't hugely surprise me if it paid dividends.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so one to watch and savour rather than potentially to bet on.
Well, yeah, but if, like me, you can't help but get involved, you sort of, like I say, if that favourite gets turned over, I'd be kicking myself for not having a go. So you could justifiably make a case for trying to place lay him. Obviously, we've only got the 6 runners, so there's only 2 places. I'm not sure how short it'll be for a place, maybe sort of 5-2, 3-1 on, maybe. He could run easily better than what he did first time out and still only finish 3rd. And like I say, you've got 4 horses here, Arthur Kit, Confiding, Dunkerron and Watan, who've all got pretty good group form or listed form that, are going to make sure that he's in a proper race here.
Okay, so on that note then we'll move over, we'll go north to Beverley then.
Excellent.
For the Beverley Bullet, always a fast and frenetic sort of race, you'd think, and I was looking at the pace map earlier. There's a strong pace forecast this year as well, and 2 of the main protagonists in the betting as well, Take Cover and Final Venture, are 2 that you'd expect to be right up there in the early stages. They
are, yeah. We should start with Take Cover. He won the race last year. Significantly, he was drawn in stall 2 that day. We know all about the draw at Beverley. He's drawn in stall 9 here, and I think that brings some complications in that he's obviously going to have to be getting out there very early. Even if he is out there very early, you've got the likes of Mirza on his inside, who will probably want to go off in front as well. And I just think at around 3-1, I mean, don't get me wrong, Take Cover's got as good a chance as any on the form. And it's quite an open race, so you're sort of looking at how the race is going to pan out to give you your edge on how it's going to affect the result. And it's just my concern is that draw in stall 9 is going to make things a little bit too difficult for David Allen. And Take Cover, admirable as he is, nearly as good as ever, retains all his enthusiasm as an 11-year-old, but that's stall 9 is just going to make things difficult.
How do you feel about the fact that he's dropping down in class here, because he was only beaten 4 lengths in the Nunthorpe last time?
Yeah, exactly. You know, in terms of grade, this is a very winnable race for him. He's been operating at grade 1 and grade 2 level down the years and running well. He's, you know, a former winner of that King George at Goodwood. He ran really well behind Batash in that corresponding event this year. I mean, my hunch is that Goodwood's probably his ideal track. That speed test there suits him well. He is a course and distance winner, obviously, but sometimes if they do end up going real hard, he just might be flagging a little bit in the finish, and maybe something that hasn't had to work quite so early from that wide draw just might pick him off late, perhaps.
Yeah, we know plenty about Final Venture as well. He was only just beaten by El Astronaut last time. He's one of the fastest horses in training at the minute. Is there a danger that they could go far too quickly up top and try and take each other on?
I guess there is a danger, but I'm hoping that although Final Venture can lead, often leads, I don't think he necessarily has to. And he's in stall 5, and I'm hoping that from that 5 stall, like I say, with we've got Mirza in stall 4, who is often one that goes from the front. Take Cover, stall 9, has basically got one way of being ridden. It's easy for me to see those two going forward, and I'm hoping that rather than sort of egging them on to go faster, Luke Morris will just sit in and track those two on Final Venture. And if he does that, in terms of ability, he's bang there at the weights. I can see him having the race run to suit, and I think he's about 4-1. Is he 7-2?
Yeah.
I think you're going to get a real good run for your money from him.
You did mention as well that potentially one could pick them off late on, the ones going off quick. And in Mr. Lupton, is he the sort of candidate, if you were looking to play that race that way, one coming from the back?
He is the obvious closer, isn't he? He's sort of turned over a bit of a new leaf. I had him down as needing a strongly run 6 at one stage of his career, but both his wins this year have been over strongly run 5s, and actually at the flat track at York. The way he races, you could see Beverley suit him better if they do go a gallop, which they should. Stall 10 does make things more difficult for him. He's going to need a fair bit of luck in running as he comes all the way through, but if they do go too hard, he's probably the one that would pick up the pieces. But the way I'm going to play the race is hope that they don't go overly strong, and that Final Venture is going to end up being able to sit in just behind the pace and be produced with his effort around a furlong out.
Okay, there are some juicy prices in behind. Do you think they are the main 3 to concentrate on, or are there any that you would be tempted to have a look at each way?
Yeah, they're the ones that interest me most. Mythmaker's having a rare run at 5 furlongs from the inside stall. He often goes quite prominent as well, so I could see him running well, but he doesn't really look quite up to this level. And El Nadim Star, she's single figures, I think, a listed winner, but that's filly's only form. She's only a 3-year-old. I can see her proving vulnerable really against those older colts and geldings that, you know, they're just a little bit tougher and a little bit more streetwise than what she probably is, I think.
Right, so Final Venture in the bullet then?
Yeah, definitely.
Okie dokie, we'll go from 5 furlongs at Beverley to 1 mile and 6 at Chester for a listed contest, and it's Ladies' Day tomorrow, I think, isn't it? So
I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure that it'll be a typical Saturday there, which is absolutely rammed. And yeah, you wouldn't get me there tomorrow for all the tea in China.
It's an interesting race, actually. There's only 6 due to go to post, but we've got a very short favourite, but potentially scope to take him on as well, perhaps.
You're a braver man than me to take him on, to be honest. He's pretty clear on the Timeform ratings. He's got an adjusted figure of 128. Next in is Dance the Dream on 124. And just looking at the form, I think if he runs to the kind of level he's been at for the last 3 or 4 starts, he's going to be difficult to beat. He wasn't beaten far, just 3/4 of a length behind Best Solution in a Group 2 last time. He's got course form. He won a listed race over slightly shorter here last year. I think this is a new race, so it's a new distance, but he's definitely just as effective over 1.75 miles as shorter. And you're looking at his rivals, and like I say, he's been operating at Group 2, Group 3 level, whereas a quick glance at the Timeform race card just shows you that they've been running in handicaps mostly. And Hochfeld, he wasn't beaten far at the Ebor meeting off a mark of 102, but it's still a notch below the kind of level that Giretto's at. And I guess it's possible something like Hochfeld could get the run of the race, a small field. Not many of these like to make the run in, whereas he, obviously being a Mark Johnson horse with Franny Norton on board, stall 2, it's not difficult to envisage a scenario where he gets on with things. But even so, I think, as far as this is going to come back and haunt me, I'm sure. Talking about 3 of these races have all got short price favourites. I've been keen enough to take 2 of them on. I don't want to take this one on.
We'll mention Here and Now quickly, because he was really impressive at York last time in a 2-mile handicap. Was it the case of him just being well weighted that day, or do you think there is a potential that he could take this step up into listed level? He was showing that he was a listed performer.
Yeah, I think there's a combination of both, really. Obviously, he was well handicapped. You don't win handicaps by 5 lengths if you're not, do you? But you look at that pedigree. He's out of the Oaks winner look here. Only a 4-year-old. He progressed really well as a 3-year-old as his stamina was drawn out. So, I do get the impression there's going to be more to come from him. I'm slightly surprised he's turning out here when immediately afterwards Rafe Beckett was interviewed and saying, they were looking to save him until York next year. That £1 million Ebor looks an obvious race for so many of them to be targeting, and potentially he could run well, finish second here, and end up going up £5 or £6, for finishing second to Giretto, which I don't think would be great placement at all. But we'll see.
Okay, so we'll finish there. So thank you very much. Just as my voice starts to go, thanks for joining us. And I will ask you as a closing question, if you had to pick a nap for the 4 races, what would you go for?
Yeah, it doesn't take too long to decide. It's laugh aloud at 4-1. Like I say, I priced the race myself. I had them much, much closer together than that. And if she retains anything like the ability she did as a 4-year-old, she's going to really give that favourite a race. So, yeah, I'll side with her.
Smashing. Hopefully 4 more winners on the preview.
I'll settle for 1.